Welcome, Drink with James, episode 148. We were gone last week. We're back again with a very special Grace. Grace, Jesus, I did it again. You know what? We are back with a very special Grace. Grace Atwood, a special Grace. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Grace, we've known each other for how many years?
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah, really
it's best
long
not
time.
to ask a person over 35 anything, which I am now. It was my birthday, if you guys missed it. We're about to get to the good stuff, but a real quick note. I got a lot less whiskey sent to me for my birthday than I would have expected to get. So feel free to send it over. 72 Allen Street, 3rd floor, New York, New York, 10002. Accepting all types of brown liquid to the office now.
But what's your favorite? I mean, like give some specifics. You don't want to be let down.
I can't be let down by a bottle of whiskey. That's what is so great about whiskey and why it's better than people. Because I don't get let down by bottles of whiskey. I think it's all great, and it's great in its variety. I'm someone that I like to have at home I have 10 open bottles.
Oh wow! All of whiskey?
Yeah, that it'll take months to get through.
Okay.
But I'm not like a creature of habit in that way that I'm drinking the same stuff all the time.
Okay.
So send me something that you love, as long as it's not under $20 and coming.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you a $15 bottle to say thank you.
If it's in plastic, I don't want it. That's my rule. That's my thing. It's got to be in a glass bottle. So, but Grace is. Let's get back to the show. Grace is has been doing this for as long as this has been a thing, really. And has in some ways changed a lot with the time, in some ways hasn't. We usually do these intros after, we're doing it before, so I don't know what this conversation is going to hold, but it is going to be great, I am sure. So welcome again, and let's start with the easy one, which is just how'd you get into this world?
So I started my blog in January of 2010. Which feels like ages ago. At the time I was working in the beauty industry. I was really unhappy. I had, so I always tell this story. I had this boss that, I was a marketing manager, so I had people under me. I wasn't brand new, but she would make me, she thought I didn't know enough about color. So she gave me 200 bottles of pale pink nail polish, all around the SE Ballet slippers level, and had me Velcro them in order of color.
Oh, wow.
So those were things I was doing at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And I was just so frustrated.
So she thought you literally didn't know much about colors.
Color.
Okay.
Like color. And I can now look at a pale pink nail polish and be don't look at my nails, they're terrible today. I can be that's ballet slippers, that's Mademoiselle, that's this. But it was a really nightmare job. She was very scary. I would go home and cry a lot. So I started this blog as just a fun thing to kind of just share things I liked, and ultimately built this community mostly on Twitter at the time, because that was where everyone was conversing, and I was suddenly kind of striking up friends with beauty editors and things, because you start tweeting back and forth with people.
So did you start with beauty?
Mostly? It was a mix. It was mostly I did beauty, but it was actually mostly fashion DIYs. So the way that I kind of I guess made a name for myself in the industry was I would see a $600 Danny Joe necklace, and I was on a budget, so I could not spend $600 on a necklace. I still wouldn't spend that on costume jewelry. And I would figure out how to make it for, $50. And I'd be Serena from Gossip Girl, this was so long ago, was wearing this $600 Danny Joe necklace, but here's how you can make it for, $60. So I was really always into making jewelry when I was younger. I don't do it enough anymore, but that was kind of how I got noticed, I would say.
Okay. It was funny because when you were I wouldn't spend that on. First, I thought you were going to say jewelry. I'm you do have a Rolex on.
I do, but that's different. That is fine jewelry. Fine jewelry is fine. That is an investment,
yes,
James.
Absolutely. I know. I was just, yes.
Yeah. For a glass bead necklace, no.
So did you have in the beginning, obviously 2011, no one's making money. This isn't a thing. You're just doing it because your job kind of sucks and you want an outlet, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to share.
Yeah.
I just wanted a place. I have always loved writing. So it was kind of just my little place that I had. And then as it got noticed, it became more for just getting noticed. The first partnership I ever had was I think 2 years into it, and UGG had me judge a boot competition where they were having all this user generated content where people could upload pictures of the boot that they had decorated, and
Wow.
I was a judge.
What a hellscape.
Yeah, so I filmed a video, I did a blog post. I don't think there was Instagram yet, and I judged a competition. I got $300, and I bought New Oliver People sunglasses. So then it was like, oh, maybe this could help like fund my shopping habit.
Right.
Like, this is great. And then it started to like slowly make more money.
Yeah. So in that first 2 years, you are just mostly focusing blog and Twitter?
Yeah.
And how?
And I think I made a Facebook page for it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, how often are you, like, how seriously are you taking this? It's hard to pump out 5 blog posts a week and have a full-time job. Were you doing that? Like, what?
I posted it every Monday through Friday. I can't do something and not take it seriously. Like, if I'm doing it, like, I want it to be good. And even though it was mostly just for me, I was like, well, you know, I read Cupcakes and Cashmere and I read The Budget Babe. I'm like, well, they're publishing every day, so I must publish every day.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was no strategy behind it. It was just like, well, this is what blogs do, so I'm going to do this.
And what did you have? Okay, so you had your first sponsored post, and that was a moment when you're like, oh, this could maybe give me a little side cash to be able to buy some nice things. But did you have a moment when it felt like it could be more than that? It could be more than just a thing that helped you shop?
Yeah. Well, I think the first moment was that I got my next day job. I got out of the beauty job, and I got a job in social media working for Bottle Bar. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is my resume. So like, not even thinking about making a living from it, I was like, this is something I can show jobs and be like, I built this, like, this is my site that I did. And then I think it was probably after 2 years at Bottle Bar, I got to a point where I was making about the same as my day job, and then I started to make more, and I was like, oh, like, this has potential. Yeah. But I was always so nervous because I think this industry is so volatile that I was like, well, this is great for now, but like,
right, who knows?
Who knows about next year? Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, it's so interesting that, I mean, by the time you quit your job, or when you were making more money at Bottle Bar on the blog than at your job, how long into having the blog was that?
Okay, like, I have to do backwards math. So it was, I started my blog 9 years ago. I had quit 4 years ago. So it was. So
you're 5 years in.
Yeah, 5 years in.
That's
and
a long time.
I would say it was like 3 or 4 years in that I was making close to my,
So you're 4 years in, and then it starts to feel like, oh, this could be a thing.
Yeah.
I think most people would feel that before making more money than their salary. So was it that you were feeling that like discomfort with taking the jump, or that it was such a new industry and you just weren't sure?
It was such a new industry, and to be totally honest, I really felt like there was like a stigma around being a full-time blogger. Now it's like the goal, and people understand what we do. But I dealt with a lot of criticism from people I knew, and, you know, like, why are you taking your selfie every day? Why are you posting your outfits? Like, do you think you're just like so pretty, or you know what I mean? Like, things like that. And I was like, no, I'm just sharing like with the world. And like, I also thought at the time, like, there was such a market for, you know, like somebody who's not a size 0, but not a plus size, like just a regular girl sharing her outfits. Yeah. So I was really nervous about like what other people would think, and also, would I be able to get another job afterwards? Like, it felt to me like almost like a mom just leaving the industry and then trying to go back in 5 or 10 years. Would that be me? Yeah. So I was very apprehensive.
And it was such a different time. People weren't leaving their jobs.
Yeah, no one took it seriously.
Yeah, there wasn't as much money, obviously, and it just wasn't. Yeah. I mean, at the time, was a lot of your money coming from sponsored posts, or was it like back in the ad revenue days? It was on like banner ads and stuff.
Banner ads, like, I did okay on those in the early days, but then the CPMs just dropped so much. It was affiliate marketing and sponsored posts. Yeah. And it was for me when the affiliate grew, because that is something that is always consistent and something you can control a little bit more. Whereas brand partnerships, you don't know. Like one day you're gonna have like 20 great offers in a month and you have to turn work down.
Yeah.
Another month you might only get 2, and it's just it's not consistent.
I think most influencers who are starting out now or in the last couple of years aren't actively creating blogs, one.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to turn their site into a shopping destination. But I think it's such a powerful thing to have built that. Did you, was that a thing that, as you took it more seriously, that was a strategy? Were you like, I want this to be a place where women, girls can come and shop? Or was it just that was what you were interested in and it kind of grew?
I think it was more what I was interested in. I was always nervous because there's a lot of blogs that are really affiliate focused, and it just feels like they're shoving stuff down your throat, and it's like there's no soul. And so I always wanted to have it be more of a place where I could connect with my audience. But I also, of course, like I love to shop, so I wanted to share those discoveries and things. Like I grew up reading, or not grew up, but in college I read Lucky magazine, and I was like always into sharing these fun discoveries with my friends. So I think it was more just about sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
less about strategy, which now I'm more strategic, but.
I mean, I think that like this is a common story in, I think the kind of influencers that started as bloggers and started back when you did or before, is that a lot of this stuff did just kind of evolve.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super strategic because there wasn't a lot of money in it. So it was just like a thing you were doing.
It's like a fun hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you, was it hard to leave your job? I mean, obviously you were pretty secure because you were making more money, but as you said, even when I had raised money for this business and had to quit my job, a job that I didn't love, but I was nervous because it's like you're jumping out of a stream that like, growing up, you're like, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna be in corporate America, I'm gonna have a job, and I'm gonna get a better job, and then a better job, and a better job. And so like jumping out of that into your own thing is scary because you're basically saying potentially goodbye to that version of your life. And no matter whether you love it or not, it is still a big step.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you struggle? You obviously struggled a bit with that because you waited a year. Yeah.
Well, I cried, and then I tried to.
This is a theme so far.
I cried, and then I tried to consult. So I got them to. Because what happened really was I got to a point where I wasn't doing either well. Like I wasn't thrilled about the content I was putting up. My outfit posts, I always had to wear sunglasses because I looked so damn tired because I was not sleeping, and I just felt like I was a shitty employee. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I was a shitty employee and I was not doing my best with the blog.
Yeah.
So I got to a point, I still remember I had a launch party because I rebranded from an embarrassing name of Stripes and Sequins to The Stripe. And I had
nice pivot.
Yes. Much better pivot.
Nice pivot.
And then I had a big party for the rebrand. Like my friend's in PR, so she helped me throw this like giant party in Brooklyn. And it was so much fun, but that weekend I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't sick, I just was so tired that my whole body felt like lead. And I was like, something has to happen here. So I talked to my boss at Bottle Bar and I was like, I'm like falling apart. And she was like, well, how about you just do only the influencer stuff and not the social media stuff 2 days a week? But the problem is that, and that I think every company realizes this now, you need a dedicated person on influencer, like especially a company of that size, because it's so many relationships, so many emails. So then these girls would email me on days where I was off and I couldn't just not respond to them for 2 days. So it was just really hard to balance that. And then I ultimately left, I think after like 4 or 5 months of the consulting thing. And then I felt like I was fully ready. Yeah.
I mean, this is just a random question, but like, do you miss being in an office? Like, do you miss that interaction? I think something I would struggle with working from home is the lack of like human interaction.
Yeah. So I try and get out, like whether it's something like this or a meeting or an event at night. I have an intern who's with me 2 days a week, and that's really helpful to just have someone there. And then actually, since launching the podcast, I now have a coworker in Becca who I do the podcast with. So we're talking all day and we're brainstorming, and that's brought some of that collaborative feeling back. But I miss like every day getting up and needing to look cute and going into an office and gossiping about Game of Thrones and like everything that happened that weekend.
Yeah.
And, I do really miss that.
Yeah.
All my best friends were at Blah Blah Bar, but then we all left.
Right.
So it changed.
Yeah. I think I would struggle with that. Like, you know, just even being around people. I think if you're social, it's such a, I think a lot of people think, oh, this is going to be so great. I'm going to work for myself and like no boss. But then you're like your third day sitting in your apartment answering emails in your pajamas. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go fucking crazy.
Yeah. So I make sure I get dressed every day. I make sure that I have some sort of a plan. And sometimes I don't want to have a plan. Like this week after like your party and like all the other things, I was like, I just need to chill.
Yeah.
And that's when it's really great to be like, it's gonna be a work on the couch day. Like I never work on my couch. I like to have separation between like my office area, but it was a couch day on Monday. What's been the biggest surprise for you, or the biggest challenge of kind of doing this thing on your own that you didn't expect? Because I think a lot of people watching are probably hoping to do what you did and quit their jobs and do this full time. And so what do you wish you knew when you quit that you know now? Make sure you factor in paying for health insurance when you, because you have to be making more from when you're self-employed than you do from your day job. I was like, oh, I'll be fine, and I am fine, but I was like, wasn't counting on paying $700 or $800 a month for health insurance. Yes. And just budget and save, and and also have confidence in yourself. I didn't have any sponsored posts the month I quit my job. Oh my gosh. And I was like, fuck, what have I done? And then it was fine. The next month I had like double what I usually get. But just, you know, if you do something, have confidence and save your money so that you have a cushion, and you can always, the other thing is you can always get another job. Yeah. Like you can, if you're smart and you work hard, you can always get another job. I think it's true. I mean, I think that like there's this feeling that if you go try something, and it fails, what will happen? Like any employer, especially now, if you went and started a business or tried to, do the influencer thing full time and it didn't work out, I think that would only be seen as a positive. Yeah, it shows you take initiative risks. And you take risks, and again, I didn't expect to talk so much about what it's like doing this full time and not fully on your own. You're managed, correct? Yes. So not fully on your own, but like. Yeah. But what, I think one of the things you lose when you lose a boss is at least like forced accountability. Mm-hmm. Like you can slip a little. Yeah. And certain things, right? And so I guess two-part question. One, were you the kind of person that always didn't really struggle with goal setting and holding yourself accountable to your own standards? And how do you continue to strive and to hit your goals and to push yourself beyond what you think you're potentially capable of? So I've always just been like a little bit of a workaholic, which I think you have to be in order to do what we do. But so the problem is like getting myself to like shut off, because when you're in an office you can just leave. Yeah. When you're at home you're like, well, I don't have plans, like I can get ahead on my blog content and maybe I'll write an extra post and like maybe I'll just do all these emails at 10 p.m. and then you're just burnt out. So I think it's really important to set boundaries. In terms of goals, like I have a big Excel spreadsheet, and every month I have traffic goals, follower growth goals, podcast download reviews, goals, all of those. Mm-hmm. So I just like keep myself really on track, but I think that's my personality type, so I don't know if that's helpful advice. I mean, I think it can be. I'm also interested in like how do you separate? I think that like when you're doing so much by yourself, there is always something to do, right? Yeah. And just because there is something to do doesn't mean that you should do it. Specifically, you should do it. Yes. Like, someone should do it. Yes. But how do you know when to start? When not to hide. Here's the thing. I think you can hide in the like minutia of busy work, which is emails and doing things like that, and be like, well, I was very busy today and I got all these emails done and I got all this stuff done, where maybe you aren't focusing on the bigger things that you should be. Should you have been out having 10 meetings with
brands
No.
instead,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of answering, reader emails. I mean, maybe not. Maybe you should be at home answering reader emails. But how do you prioritize those things, especially as the business grows? You're an ambitious woman. You want
Yeah.
more than what you have. So like, how do you balance that?
I really struggle because I want everything to be in my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, last summer was wonderful because I had an intern who was answering all my DMs for me. And then I just felt bad about that because it wasn't, my readers thought they were having this amazing connection with me and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that and now I answer every message. And maybe it's just like I feel this like obligation to my readers, and I think that's one of the reasons I've been successful is that my readers feel like we're friends. And because of that, I prioritize that probably over meeting with brands. But I'm also lucky and I've been doing it for so long that I have this big network and I don't have to take a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
I would like to take more, but and I don't really go to that much stuff anymore. But I think I think it's finding like the smaller tasks, like cropping images. I always do all my photography through a photographer because that's just not something I'm particularly strong at. What else? I don't outsource a lot and I should. Having a manager has really helped just because I don't like talking about money and I'm so friendly with so many people in the industry that I'll be like, oh, I'll just do it for free.
Yeah.
And I still do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or I'll just do it for like half.
Not for us, just to be clear. She's never said that for us, but awesome.
Cheers.
Yeah.
We have it on record now, so.
That's why I have a manager. So she has really, really helped with that, and she also keeps me organized. And like there was last month we just had so many different deadlines, and every day it was like someone kind of like lighting a fire under your tail. So that has helped. I also find having a manager helps you kind of be like the shiny talent. So you can be the fun one. You've talked about this on previous episodes. Like I love the relationship. Like I want to like come to Fora and drink with you guys and like hang out, but I don't want to be the one talking about money too.
Yeah.
So I find that has helped me a lot. Photography is a big one. I have an SEO person helping me, so she comes up with a lot of outsourcing content ideas and things that are trending on the internet. Yeah. And she also optimizes all my posts, which has been, I've seen a lot of growth from that.
Yeah. I think that like an existential question that any founder, any business owner has to ask themselves is like, how big do I want this to be?
Yeah.
And can it scale, right? Like you can't, if you want, the Stripe to be as big as Man Repeller, you can't be answering DMs. I know. Right? Like that's not a reality. Yeah. But every business doesn't have to grow to the absolute biggest it can be, right? Like sometimes it's nice to keep something, you might be at a size where you're like, this feels great. I love it and I'm happy and I live a good life and I make good money and I have more brands that want to work with me than I can work with, so I can just start charging more of a premium. Like for you, again, as someone I know is ambitious, what is it? Do you want it to be much, much bigger?
So yes and no. I want my podcast and my blog to keep growing. Instagram, I'm fine if I stay at that number. And that'll always be hard because brands measure you on your Instagram following. But at the same time, like I really like, and it's funny because my Instagram has grown. It started to grow again once I was like, oh, I don't care if it grows. It's like that's just how it is. But it's truly not a huge focus for me. Like I will always be on there and engaging and doing all of the things. But I see someone like A Cup of Joe, for example, and maybe she's a bad example because she's one of the original bloggers. Yeah. But anytime, like she linked to a photo of mine, just the photo credit, because she borrowed an image. And that drove like 300 clicks to my site. And I was like, I want that. Like I want this massive website that people come to. And I don't know if that's realistic in this world, but my traffic's been up like 30% every year. So I think it can get there. I want a massive website. I want my podcast to, we set the goal of by 2020 in the year to quintuple our traffic, and our traffic's already 3 times what it was at the start of the year. So growing that, I want to have more live shows for my podcast. Instagram, like if it grows, great. If it doesn't, like I have enough of a hard time replying to all those DMs.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like a proper strategy, but I think that we all have to do like the things that we enjoy the most, like the blog and the podcast. Like I just love both of them so much.
Yeah.
And I am seeing great growth with those. Instagram, it's like this big rat race and this big competition, and they change the algorithm every day, and everyone's upset because their numbers are going down. And I think, why are we killing ourselves in something that's constantly changing?
Yeah.
And again, it's an important part of the business. Like I have sponsored campaigns with you guys, and I always want to do a great job with those. But if I keep my Instagram rates the same as they've always been, and I keep maybe growing that in a small way, that's fine to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty rare statement on this show. I think
I don't want to give bad advice. Like I'm not a great photographer, and I just know that you are such a good photographer.
Thank you.
And I outsource that, but you know, at the time, right now, iPhone images are just performing so much better on Instagram, and like that's great for me. But I also don't really have a lot of people I can just ask to take a photo. Like if I'm out with my friends at night, I don't want to be like, oh, will you just like snap my outfit? Like, so I find having an intern to do that is really helpful. But also like Instagram is a photo heavy platform, so it's not going to be my strongest one. I think I'm much stronger on stories because I'm just talking and yakking about like what I think is cool and not really caring.
Did you struggle with that decision? I mean, you sound so confident and like okay with that now.
It wasn't until the podcast.
It must have been tough to see. You're in this. Being in this world is strange because other influencers are your friends and your colleagues, but they're also your competitors. And you judge yourself against them, and unfortunately, you don't walk around with a sign above your head that shows how much traffic you have, which is an impressive number. And so it must have been hard to see people, fly by you on Instagram. Did you struggle with that?
And I struggled also with not getting angry because I'm pretty like calm. And it was the loop giveaways. Like I don't think that people are doing those as much anymore. But those goddamn giveaways, like I just like have no patience for them. And I think it's a terrible way to build your business. And I saw so many people just flying by me and getting partnerships that I would have loved to get. But I also keep in mind whenever I work with a brand, I'm like, listen, like I don't do any of that. And like the people that you are seeing liking it, they're real. So at the end of the day, I can sleep at night and I don't feel bad. But again, when there's people who are just so talented, like I think of like whenever I go to JC Dupree's feed, it's just like so put together, but it also feels very in the moment and like never staged. I think Katsanita's photography on her site is so beautiful. There's so many influencers that are doing such a great job.
Yeah.
But I think that we're all just strong in different ways, and I think that it's so important to focus on what you're good at and not get down. But I will say I was not this confident until I launched the podcast. Like when we sold out Caroline's, and we were so terrified. We were like, you want like us to do a live show? They're like, yeah, if you can get 60 people in the room, like that's fine. Yeah. And we're like, we have 60 friends. We can force them all to like buy a $20 ticket and come. And we sold it out, and like incredible. That was one of the best nights of my life. So if my Instagram isn't growing as much as like some people's, well, no one's growing right now. Are people growing? Like talk to me.
Tezza
is doing a great job.
Tezza probably got 10,000 followers since this show started recording.
But great for her.
Yeah.
But I see the other thing that I see on a lot of these Instagrammers, like they're always going to new destinations and taking these beautiful photos. And when I travel, like I want to be in my Birkenstocks and like cutoffs, and like I do a lot when I travel. I'm an aggressive traveler, but I don't want to be camera ready the whole time. Yeah. So I see that and I'm like that's great. Like, or Julia from Gal Meets Glam, like she does such a beautiful job.
Yeah, they're amazing.
But I don't want that. Like I know what the behind the scenes looks like.
Right.
And it's so much work. And this is mostly influencers, right?
Yeah. And my mom.
Hi, James's mom. I get really upset when people are like, oh, they're complaining about all their travel. I'm like, that's not a vacation. Like, they're creating this dream world and they're working so hard the whole time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It is full on. But I think just to push once more, like, did you feel, I'd say like a couple years ago, like that you had like missed the boat on it, that you had like fucked up?
I felt like I fucked up.
In focusing too much on blog and not jumping to Instagram?
Well, I fucked up in so many ways, and I still think I fucked up because I used Instagram. Well, first I used it this is so bad. I used it because I thought it was like a filtering service for images.
I mean, it's kind of what it was in the beginning.
Yeah, and for the first year I was on Instagram, I was just using it as a filter and pushing it to Twitter.
Yeah.
And then I remember one day I looked in there, and I was the director of social media for a company when I did this, so bad. I looked in there and I was like, oh, I've got like 10,000 followers on here. Cool. And then I realized that was something I needed to focus on.
Yeah.
But still, I would take you can't even do this on stories anymore. I would take a picture of my blog post on my computer and put it on Instagram and be like, new post.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like I wasn't even like downloading
really,
the photo
really
and putting
innovative,
that.
Grace.
What?
That's really innovative. That's nice.
It was real bad. Like it was, so I missed the boat, and I could have grown very quickly if I had just paid more attention. And I remember because a lot of my blogger girlfriends and I had similar followings, like this was years and years ago, like JC and Kat and a few others, like we were all like, I don't know, maybe like 30,000 followers, and like they went like this and I went like this.
Yeah.
But you can't beat yourself up because at the end of the day, I'm so proud of everything I'm doing right now, and it wasn't my full-time job at the time.
Yeah.
And I made some big oversights with Instagram.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good lesson because like,
it's a huge lesson.
even if you had focused on it to your point now, you probably wouldn't have been that good at it, right? Like, because at the
photography
time,
app.
yeah, at the time, you know, Instagram has gone through so many different iterations of like what is popular and what is like on trend, and like you doing super minimalist photos against a white wall with you like really small. I just don't see that being like your
it's
your
not
thing.
my vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me trying would probably have been like me in like 25 colored items, like with like and being like big smile, and maybe it would have worked, but probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. But so then you wallow in self-pity for a little while, and then you get back to work, and how do you think about starting a podcast?
So it started so I'm always now, because of Instagram, like watching what's growing and where things are going. And I was like, I need a podcast. I was like, I need a podcast. At the same time, I never want to do something just because it's like the cool thing to do. And I never want to do something and not have it be done well. Mm-hmm. So I was like, me talking or trying to interview a different guest every week or talking into a recorder every week would be boring as hell. So I asked my friend Becca to do it, and I knew I wanted it to be about books, which is what we kind of started it as. Yeah. Because my reading lists on my website are oddly like one of the most trafficked posts every month, because people want book recommendations. Yeah. So like it's going to be a book club, and that's how we started it. And there was so much learning involved, like a lot of just searching YouTube tutorials to figure out how to like. At one point we had the sound going in one ear and then the other one, and like there's just been so many technical difficulties. So a lot of just like looking up different tutorials and teaching ourselves stuff. But it just started with the book thing, and then it kind of took on its own life from there. Did
you think going into it, did you feel like it was something that you were going to be good at?
Mm-mm.
No?
No. It's always been about my blog, because I do think I'm really good at my blog. I was like, this is another marketing tool to get people to my blog. They'll find me in iTunes and then they'll go to my blog. Yeah. And that has happened. But similar to the way Instagram is, there's just this whole audience of people that want to find new podcasts and consume that right now.
Yeah. And when did you know that it felt like there was something interesting happening with the podcast, that like maybe like, oh shit, this could be like a thing in its own right?
Well, the live show was a big one because of that. I would say, I think when we started to take on guests, we saw our numbers go up so much, because those interviews were really interesting and fun. And I would also say with our Facebook group, that's like, there's only 2,000 women in it, but it is like the most busy little thing. Like everyone's sharing book recommendations, and like it's just this amazing community, and those people are so engaged. And yeah, I think that I would say that, because then it was like, well, when are you doing more live shows? And we were like, we didn't even plan to sell one out. Like, so now we're doing 5. And I think, podcasting is really interesting because it's much more regulated than blogging. Like it's all on a CPM basis, so we don't charge much for our ads still, even for like a pretty successful podcast. Like for what I charge for an Instagram post versus a podcast ad is so different, which I understand, but I also think it's interesting because people are captive for that 1 hour and they're like really listening and paying attention. So I never thought it was going to be very lucrative, but I think as it grows and as we do more live shows, we like just incorporated, and now we're like starting to see. We still haven't paid ourselves for the podcast though yet. Yeah. So
how long have you been doing it?
Things might look successful on the outside, but they're a year.
Okay,
yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
And when did it shift in focus? Because I think again, it started as like a thing with specifically young adult books, right?
Yeah. Well, we got tired.
Yeah.
We were trying to do, first I was like, we'll read 1 book a week, because I do read a book a week.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a podcast, you also have to outline it and come up with talking points and discussion.
Are you supposed to do that? Because I've never done that for this show. I think that's probably why. It's probably why you have more people listening to yours.
No, it's hard to remember all of the things that you're going to talk about with a book, at least. Like when we do interviews with people, it's much more informal.
Yeah.
But we quickly realized we're definitely not doing 1 book a week.
Yeah.
So then we were like, let's do 2 books a week. And I just found myself so tired, and it started to take a lot of the pleasure out of reading because we were like scrambling to read these books. Like I remember there was one Monday and we had to record that day, and I couldn't do any of my regular work because I had to read this book. And I was like, this is miserable.
Yeah.
So then we switched down to one book a month, and that was a much better model. But we took most of November, we took from Black Friday through Christmas off because I was so burnt out for the blog, and I was like, I can't focus on this. It's not making any money. It's kind of a pain in the ass. And I was like, we'll see if we want to keep doing this. And I only kept doing it because Becca loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not gonna keep doing this, but I don't want to let my friend down.
Right.
And now I love it. Like I'm so glad I kept doing it.
And you were saying it's actually started to drive some Instagram growth for you as well, right?
I think, and it also just, I think I want to say like loyalty amongst current followers, because I get a lot of messages being like, I always liked your blog, and I liked your writing, and I liked your outfits, or whatever they liked, your beauty reviews, but I really like you now. And I was like, thanks. Like, because I think when someone's listening to you for an hour and a half, they feel like they're your friend.
Yeah. And
so I think it's really helped. I'm starting to see more engagement on my Instagram. I'm starting to not lose followers. I spent all of 2018 losing followers. Like, I've heard worse stories. Like, a friend of mine lost like 15,000 followers last year. I probably only lost like 2,000, but that's still super discouraging.
It's really frustrating. Yeah.
And you've said like most influencers over 100K are losing followers. So
60%.
that made me feel better.
Yeah, 60%.
Yeah. So.
But like, how fucking annoying to work the whole year and lose 2,000 followers.
Yeah, and I looked at it as well. I still like made a lot of money off of this, so but like to lose, like it's just so frustrating, because for every sponsored post you're doing 5 posts that you're paying for photography or like paying for an outfit or whatever it is you're paying for, and to lose people, you're like, what am I doing wrong? So as the podcast has grown, my Instagram has started to grow again, and I think my audience just frankly likes me more.
Yeah.
I think they get my sense of humor. Also, it's helped with sponsored content, oddly, because, for example, I did a brand campaign with Hinge, and up till then, I had talked about Hinge constantly on the podcast. I'm like, it's the only dating app I'll use, and this is all true.
Right.
And then Hinge came to me, and I was like, we want to buy a sponsored Instagram. I had users applauding the fact that I got this sponsored post, which never happens. They're like, yeah, get it, girl. Like, we've heard you talk about this for so long. Or, there's another one. Oh, anytime I talk about body washes, people know I have like a cleanliness obsession.
Okay.
And I love shower gel. Like, I have 8 different shower gels in my shower. So I talk about it, and then like I had a body wash sponsor, and people were like, yeah.
What's the best body wash? If you could only have one, what would it be?
Right now, I would say, well, James, this is really hard. Can I have 2?
No, you can have one.
It would have to be Glossier Body Hero. It's just, if you like Orange Blossom, it's the best one.
Okay, wow. What is that a scent?
Yes.
Okay. You talk about how you were able to kind of, step away from the rat race of Instagram and from kind of being as precious with it. And like, has that been really freeing for you with Instagram, just to be more, like, to caring less about it working?
Yeah.
Has it allowed you to do more and feel a little more free with the content you're putting on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like and it's so interesting also to test what does well. Like the night after of your party, I was out till 2 a.m. and my friend snapped this random black and white picture of me at the bar. I never would have posted that.
Yeah.
But I posted it the next morning with a terrible hangover, being like the best nights end in sequins and
Right.
I don't know, at 2 a.m. or something. And for me, it got like triple my usual engagement.
People were probably just impressed that you were out till 2 a.m. on a school night, which was impressive.
And I'm 37, folks, so still got it.
Yeah, see? You don't die at 35.
No, life just begins.
And I think the caveat here, for people watching is that, like, we talk about, diversifying your income stream and when Instagram is the only thing that you're making money off of.
It's so scary.
And you have to really care about it. You have to be hyper focused on growth and engagement. But to have other things and have Instagram be a big and essential part of your revenue stream and the business that you have, I'm sure, but not be what in the startup world we call a single point of failure. You never want to have a business that if one thing changes, then you are ruined, right?
Yes.
So like, if you never got another sponsored Instagram post, you would still make a living doing this and you would still be successful and be fine.
Yeah, and it would be harder, of course, but and I think, I don't know, I just always want to focus on what I can control. Besides the blog and the podcast, I'm really focused on my email newsletter because these are things that I own and no one's going to be able to mess with them.
Yeah. And when you say focus on it, what do you mean?
Making sure that every day there's a new blog post up, every Wednesday there's a podcast, every Friday my newsletter.
For the email newsletter specifically? Just
being really consistent with it, making sure that I put affiliate links in there to help drive extra revenue and keeping it interesting and something people want to open.
So if, again, I'm an influencer and I'm like, I watch this or listen to it and I'm feeling super inspired and I'm like, okay, I'm going to, either, let's say they don't want to do a podcast, but they're like, I don't have a newsletter, I should. Like, how do you start? How do you make that interesting? Is it all roundups? Is it different content for the newsletter? How do you kind of keep it interesting? Mine
is generally a mix. Like whenever there's a really big sale, like the Nordstrom anniversary sale or Shop Up, I definitely do a sale roundup, but I try and keep it not too salesy. Someone I think does a great job with her email is Shanae Alexander. She does like an editor's letter. So I would say, like, think about what sets you apart and what you're really strong at, and do that. Like, if your audience is really shopping focused, make it an extra shopping roundup. Merritt Beck from The Style Scribe does a question and answer, and the only way to get the Q&A is by subscribing to her email. But I would just say it's a really good thing to start. In terms of tactics, like I do mine through MailChimp. I think it's great if you have a blog to put the pop-up, so it's the first thing they see, like stay in touch. People do like get this free thing if you sign up. I don't do that because I think it's kind of cheesy. Put it in do swipe ups from Instagram stories, put it in your bio, like just tell everyone.
And how often, like on Instagram, are you trying to push to that? Do you say like, oh, once a week I'm gonna do this, or is it just
Not
kind
enough.
of when you think about it?
It's when I think, I just said that and I was like, I gotta do that. It's a good strategy that in theory I should do more.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're just starting it and it has to be more of a focus, like do that every week.
Yeah.
Don't be annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just am always so hyper conscious, like am I being annoying to my followers? Like, which is why I don't do a lot of swipe ups in my stories. I always link to my blog post like first thing in the morning, but you know how there's that constant like swipe of affiliate links and stuff. Like I don't want to see that. Like,
right.
I think the best advice I can give any influencer is like, do you want to see that? Like, create things that because I didn't do that for a long time on my blog, like in the early days. Like sometimes I would post something and I'd totally cringe, like an outfit would look kind of bad or whatever, and I would just be like, well, I gotta post.
Right.
So try not to do that.
Yeah. I think we say a lot like, to ask yourself, we do this with clients as well, like, think about the last thing that you swiped up on and why.
Yeah.
And like try and understand what is driving you to swipe up on something, and like try and replicate that in the influencer work that you are doing. And so it is always good, I think, when you're thinking about your own content, to be like, would I give a shit about this if it wasn't me?
Yeah.
Like, would I care about what I'm posting if it wasn't me? And if it's a no, it's probably not worth putting up there.
Exactly. I totally agree. Wait, I want to go back to Instagram though, because I don't want people to think I totally don't care. But I do care. It's still my business, and I if I have a post and it doesn't do well, I still dig into the analytics and think about why it didn't do well, and I still care.
Right. I just think you have a healthier relationship with it than you probably used to, and then a healthier relationship than a lot of influencers have with it.
Yeah, it can get really...
Which is to say, this is important, but this is not me.
Yeah.
And this is not my entire life.
And getting your self-worth out of it, like, this might sound emotional, but like, you can't measure yourself on that number.
Yeah.
It'll make you crazy.
Yeah, no.
It's like what you said, the number floating above your head, because I want to be like, I wish that number could also include like blog traffic and podcast downloads and Facebook fans and like the whole picture.
Right.
Which you kind of do well with the For profile, because people can go on and see that your reach isn't just your Instagram or just your blog or just your Facebook.
But it has had to been tough over the last few years, as a person's level of influence is essentially predicated almost solely on that number.
Yeah.
So people look at it and they're like, oh, so you have a
You're
nice
doing okay.
following, but you're like, no, like
I got all this
there's
other
a much
stuff.
bigger thing happening here.
Yeah. The one thing that hurts is like with event invites often, because like brands base their lists on Instagram audience, and I'd be like I'm at this point in my life where I'd rather just be with my friends than at these brand events. But when you see all your friends at like a really cool party, and you're like, oh, I'm the only one that has, in that case, it was like under 100,000 followers. Right. And it just like hurts a little bit, because you feel like you're getting left behind.
Yeah, and this is your career and it is your life, and like you're allowed to be upset about those things.
Of course, it's totally normal.
I get jealous and pissed off and frustrated with myself when I see other people I know's businesses doing much better or getting amazing press coverage that we're not getting, and I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with me? So I think a little pity party is okay every once in a while. Yeah,
and it's so public. Like Jessica Sturdy has a podcast called Along for the Ride, and she just did this great interview, and she was like, imagine if at your job, like you could see every time a coworker was getting promoted, and you could see every time like someone was getting work and you weren't, and it's just so public and so visible.
Yeah. Or like how much money people had or something, right? Like you can see what's in their bank account. In the twilight of our time together here. Yes. I want to talk about. An end. I want to stay forever. It is coming to an end somehow.
The new office is so nice. Everyone has to come here. Like
Not
the
everyone.
bar. Everyone just show up.
Not everyone needs to come.
He gave you the address earlier.
Don't show up. Unless you're bringing whiskey. So, I want to talk about sponsored posts.
Yes.
And how you try and make those special, right? I think we've worked with you a bunch. You do a great job.
Thank you.
What's your process like when you've negotiated, all that's taken care of, right?
Yeah.
You've got the brief. Like where do you go from there?
Well, I think the first thing is like, would I want to read this? Like we talked about just now. The second thing is I always think like it needs to be successful, it needs to be personal or funny or informative. It needs to be one of those three things. I have a fourth one and I totally forget what it is, but it needs to fall into one of those four categories, and it needs to be something I would want to engage with. And it needs to just be real. Like I never want to work with a brand so I'm part of the Sephora squad, which Sephora is doing, and one of the things I love about it is that you really encourage us to be honest and forthright and share our actual opinions, and not just like be regurgitating press releases. Right. Because if I'm expected to...
As long as your opinion is positive.
Yes. But the great thing about that program is you pick us for things that we love. And like how can you go to Sephora and not find something you like? Right. Like of course there might be individual products or lines that I'm not a fan of, and then you just pass on those. Yeah. But it just has to be... the pressure is just definitely higher, because if I'm getting paid, I have to make it something that my audience is really gonna love. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think back. The latest post I did with you guys was the skincare one with Sephora. So I make sure to work with a really good photographer so the imagery is really strong. Because again, I'm not great with photos. The other thing.
And I think that sounds like a small thing or an obvious thing, but like a lot of people don't do that. And I think that like when you get to Grace's level, or hopefully beyond, although she'll be nipping at your heels, and what we're paying you for a single post, if we see photography that feels lazy, it's like, what kind of fucking asshole do you think I am that you think it's okay for me to pay you thousands of dollars and for you to send me this shitty iPhone photo back and be like,
well, the problem is the iPhone photos do so well on
right,
Instagram.
but it's like, you have to be kidding me.
Yeah.
You have to be kidding me that you think this is acceptable. Yes. This is not acceptable in any way.
I agree. But I will say it gets better engagement.
Again, that's fine. But like, you look so unprofessional and you look like an asshole if you send a lazy imagery. Now, if you really believe, and for you, iPhone imagery does better, talk to them before.
Yes,
Say, iPhone imagery does better. Is that okay? I can hire a photographer, but like, you know.
Also just communicate with the brand. I recently had a book Instagram that I did, and they asked me 3 days before it had to go up if I could do it. And I said, I can do it, but it will be an iPhone photo. But I think that for this, like, iPhone photos do really well with my audience.
Yeah.
And the post it blew most of my sponsored content out of the water. Yeah, it was the Where'd You Go Bernadette one if you look at my page.
Yeah.
So I think, and it was creative, like I put the book up to my face and it was funny. But I think just be upfront with the brand and like communicate with them. Because I never would turn in an iPhone photo to a brand. I feel like, again, it feels really sloppy.
Yeah.
But if they ask you 2 days before something's due, you don't have an Instagram husband, I'm like still looking for one. I don't know where they all are.
You gotta teach your cat to.
Yeah, the cat needs to get better with the camera.
Yeah. But again, I didn't mean to derail you, but like, I do think that like, it's a small point to be like, oh, I make sure I hire a good photographer, but like, I have asked our team not to work with influencers because they've submitted iPhone photos. Yeah. And I'm just like, you must think I'm fucking stupid.
Yes.
Like, you must think I'm dumb that I'm gonna pay you for this. It's frustrating. So, okay, so you get a great photographer. What's next?
If it's a beauty post, this is something that I know it bothers you. I make sure that I can try it for at least a week, at least ideally 2 weeks, so I can really talk to the product benefits. Reader trust, fan trust, whatever you want to call it, is all we have as influencers. It's literally all we have. So if I give a shitty review of something, my audience is not going to trust me anymore, and that is going to impact my sales, my conversion, my traffic, all of it. So I've had to turn down a lot of work in the past month because things just have such tight turnarounds. Yeah. And I think that is the most important thing. So you can give an actual experience. I don't do a lot of fashion sponsored campaigns. Like every now and then I'll get one. There's
not many of them. There's not as much.
Yeah. If I do one, I make sure that it's really perfect. Again, get a great photographer. Yeah. I spent like 2 hours removing, I don't know if this is relevant, but you know, in Photoshop, like I live in Brooklyn, so there was all these stickers on the wall, like removing.
And just like rats running around, right? I don't know.
No. Have you ever been to Brooklyn?
I've never been.
I invited him to my house for a party, but he was sick.
I was sick. See, I wasn't lying.
You'll come to the next one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You were clone stamping stickers out of a thing. Yes.
So I just make sure that it's like really perfect because I want the brand to be happy, but I also want my readers to like it. And like captions are a big one. Make it funny and interesting. Like for the skincare one, I was like, my bed and my skincare are my 2 greatest loves. Like, and that's the truth.
Right.
So I'd say that. But again, it goes back to like, would I like this on Instagram? Would I want to engage with this? And if the answer is no, go back to the drawing board.
And how do you, I think that like, there are posts, like when you start getting into mass CPG brands, right? Brands that make really great products that are part of so many people's lives, but are harder to talk about, because they're not Body Hero by Glossier, right? Like they're not exciting and new cool. And they're not cool. How do you approach those? Because you can't it's like you want to make it about the product.
Yes.
But the product is maybe beneficial or useful or good, but not inherently cool or interesting. So how do you try and spice it up, or are you just like, this is what's great about this?
I don't think I do the best job with this. It's something I'm still working on. I just will talk about what's genuinely great about it. Like I just did one for Nivea body wash, and I talked about the fragrance because it's this cucumber melon fragrance, and it really does make me, it transports me back to my high school days where I had a cucumber melon body wash that I splashed on every day after track practice. Someone I think does an amazing job with that, is not to like totally fangirl her, is JC. She does all of this content for Olay, and she is making it cool the way that she photographs it. Like she has like this, just a really great aesthetic, and the way that she photographs these products does a great job. If it's me, because my images aren't always like, they're getting better, and I have a great photographer. But I will make sure that I'm really selling the benefits and talking about the product in the caption.
I mean, I
think there's a lot of ways to do it.
I mean, that's the advice we've given, is that if you use the product and can, I think something you said that's so true and so important is make it personal, right? Like, and if you don't use it, you can't make it.
Don't work with something you don't use.
You can't make it personal. How could you? You don't know anything about it. You don't have a personal story about it.
Exactly.
I think that like you need to be. I think making it personal is such a great piece of simple advice. And you have pushed back with us on campaigns because you felt like you didn't have time to do that. And I think it's a really difficult and like kind of brave and smart
it's hard
thing to do.
because like there's all this money being offered to you, but if it's going to make my readers not trust me, I can't do it. Or if I'm going to just get like a bad feeling in my mouth, like, oh, it was like pretty packaging and it was a nice product, but I don't even really know how it works.
Or it's like the brand's 10 things that they think are so great about it, but you're just like regurgitating it, as you said. Okay, so post is over. You posted. What do you do to like maintain relationships with brands? And like, how are you managing that? Obviously, you have your manager who's helping you, presumably, certainly on inbound, but maybe other ways as well. What are you doing right after the campaign? And what are you doing on an ongoing basis to stay top of mind?
So there are two things that you told me to do. James will change your life, guys.
See?
One is sending a performance recap. I have not been as good as I was with sending those, but I always at least send the results as well as a thank you. Like, we loved working with you. I love the product. I'm still using it. From a less of a communications thing, I make sure that I keep integrating it into my posts. So if someone sees my shower, they're going to see that Nivea body wash I'm still using, or they're going to see those Sephora products I just bought. So that they're still, and they're going to be featured in other ways on my blog, like in a product roundup or what have you, so that they're getting a little bit of, like, I call it like my background's in marketing, like added value. And
can I just jump in on that real quick? I know now we're both getting a little buzzed, so we're like happily interrupting each other. I was in a meeting recently with a brand, great client of ours we love, and they were talking about how they paid this influencer all this money to use their coffee machine, and they did this great post that they were happy with, and brand was happy, they felt good about it, and then a week later, they didn't do another post for a coffee company, but they were in their kitchen, and their coffee machine was gone, and it was replaced with another one, and they were really upset about it.
Of course, they should be.
And
as a consumer of that person's content, I'd be upset. I'd be like, wait, you just talked about Nespresso and now you're using Keurig? Like, I mean, I hope it's the other way around, but like, no. Right.
And I think that like what influencers neglect to understand sometimes is like your actions have consequences.
And you have brands watching you at all times, and your readers are smart.
I
call them readers. I don't know what we call them in Instagram.
That's fine.
Followers.
And
I call my podcast listeners readers, and
it's fine. Nomenclature is not important. So where was I going with this? Wait, it's there.
The coffee maker.
The coffee maker. This.
The brand was upset.
I think you being like, I'm very pleased that I didn't have to plant that point with you, and you said that like you make sure to integrate it into your life, because like I can tell you this, every single brand's expectation is that if they pay you for a post, that they will get more than that.
Of course.
In coverage.
Of course,
like,
and they should.
It's almost one for one, you know, like not a dedicated post that is like, again, talking about all the key benefits and stuff, but like having it be in there and throw a tag. I never understand this, and Grace, maybe you can explain it to me. When influencers, like, I'll see this happen on trips. They'll go on a trip with a brand, and half the, you know, they'll tag the brand in the post that they were contracted for, and they'll do other posts and not tag the brand. Or like, they'll do a sponsored post for a brand, and then they'll do an organic post that's no one sponsored, and they won't tag, and the brand's in it, but they won't tag them. And I don't understand why. Like, if some influencers feel like, I'm not giving anything away, so if you didn't pay for it, you don't get a tag.
The only thing I can think of is that they think that their readers or followers are going to think it's another sponsored post, and so then it's like, it looks like you're doing all this sponsored content. So I think maybe that's it. But I don't do that. Like, I tag everyone whenever. Sometimes I forget. Like, but
I mean, obviously, I'm not an influencer, and like I try and tag brands just because I don't want to answer fucking stupid questions about.
Same. I don't want. Everything I do is to cut down on DMs.
Yeah, like of course they still probably DM you being like, "Where are the sunglasses from?" You're like, "Tap the photo, people."
I tell my size, the brand, like way too much information. I cringe writing it, but it's just to cut down on the DM.
Right. So then, 2 months after a post, what are you doing to stay in touch with that brand?
Probably not enough. I'm not great at pitching myself, and I'm not great at recontacting people. I have a friend who has every brand she works with in Salesforce and then reaches out using that. I have a newsletter for brands where I talk about what is going on.
Yeah.
But
whose idea was that? Right.
I haven't sent it out in a few months. Maybe I'll send one out this week.
Should. I remember you emailed me. Didn't you say that like you sent it out and it was working?
Yeah, and I got some work from it. Yeah. So that's a great way. I would say that the big thing is like to keep using it, because then the brands, then you tag them, they DM you and they're like, we love that. Like, oh, we want to send you something else, or we want to get you for another sponsored post. And like, that's great. I don't know. I should be better. I should be better about pitching myself, and I should be better at staying in touch with brands after the fact. I
mean, I think that like for all you know, I think that the interesting thing, like tagging them on Instagram, they usually get like reminded you exist. Like it can be simple. Like if someone paid you, just put it into an Excel doc, a Google doc, and maybe just like put the date that you posted about the brand. Yeah. And then in like 3 months, if you see, I haven't posted about them. Yeah. Post something, go buy something of theirs, like do something and tag them, and like it goes a long way. It's like buying a $20 product and posting about it. Yeah. Like, I always try and shop with the brands that pay me. It goes a long way. And sometimes I get yelled at. Like Sarah Flint did a shoe sponsorship with me, and then I love her pumps are my favorite heels. I went and bought two more pairs, and they yelled at me. They're like, we would have given you those. I was like, I know, but like I also want to be able to tell my readers, like, I bought these because I love them. Right, you gotta get high in your own supply, right? Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. So, obviously a big focus for most people, probably the two biggest is like, how much money am I making and how much am I growing? Of course. And you are uniquely positioned for an influencer, I think, in being kind of more diversified than most in their platforms and then revenue streams. Something we didn't even talk about, and I don't know if we have time to, but like you also have an incredibly active private Facebook group. Oh yeah, I do. It's only 3,000 people, but they're the best. Yeah. I love them. I think that's how I got Sephora Squad, because I posted about it there, and she got like a crazy amount of testimonials. Speaking about crying, I was reading, because they were all like pasting in their testimonials. I was like sitting at my desk sobbing. That's great. It was so nice. Yeah, that is nice. It's. I mean, I think it can be it's such a. Wait, did I tell you the story? I think it's actually, I know we're running over, but the story of how I started the Facebook group is actually kind of funny. Are we okay? Okay. Yeah, there's no time limit. I did this post a while back about dating and how it's so hard, and
blah, blah, blah. And one of the things I said was like, get yourself a good group of friends. And I had so many messages, emails, DMs saying, Grace, it's so hard to make friends in your 30s, like or your 20s, just like living in a big city. And so I said, oh, I'm going to help you all make friends. I was like, I'm going to create friend groups in every city. So send me an email if you want me to connect you. And so I did, and I got over 500 emails in like 2 days. I was like, fuck, like what have I done here?
Yeah.
I was on a press trip in Miami at the time, and I was just like, oh boy, like these are really like flooding in. So I did it, and I set it up, and then I was getting, people were messaging me and saying, oh, I want to be added to the Boston friend group. I want to be added to the New York friend group. And like I had just passed on the emails already to like and so I was like, ugh. So I started the Facebook group because of that. And now like there's all these meetups and things, and like it's not about me, like it's about the community. They're meeting up, they have book clubs, and you know, they give each other travel advice.
That's
and
amazing.
They meet up. Like I crashed one of the dinners because there was a dinner in the West Village, and they were just like it was like 15 really nice girls, like, and they were like, people have said to me,
it's fucking crazy that 15 of your blog readers have dinner in the West Village together.
So I met them, and one of them messaged me, and she's like, I met my best friend in the city. Because this was like 2 years ago that I started this. I met my best friend because of you. And that makes me feel so much better, because I feel like as an influencer or something, like what's like the bigger purpose of what we're doing? Like what are we accomplishing? And like knowing like, yes, I'm helping people like with their skin. Like, you know, it's always nice to look younger or have like beautiful shoes. But to know that I help people make like what are hopefully lifelong friends, like that's where I'm like, oh, I love what I do.
Yeah. I don't know what the number or stat is. There's something that's either 10, maybe it's 10,000. I think someone said that if you can have 10,000 dedicated fans of something, a product, something you do, that like you will be successful. That like 10,000 people being really into what you're doing can completely change your life.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that like too many influencers are, you know, quantity, not quality focused, I think. And I think what's so nice about this conversation is hearing about the care you're putting into not getting a new follower, but trying to keep the one you have happy.
Yes, we've talked about this at lunch.
Yeah.
We go to lunch every now and then. It's really nice. We talked about that.
Yeah. And I think it's rare, and I think that like it's somewhat a product of our culture of just like once you get something, the only thing you care about is the next thing, instead of being like, look, if you have 10,000 followers, that's 10,000 people following you, like, and you're so focused on growth, but like, have you asked yourself recently, like, what am I doing for these people?
Yes.
That have already followed me?
That's the thing. Like, I have 111,000, and I'm so busy just trying to engage with them and, you know, keep like reply to their comments and their DMs. Like, I don't know that I want that many more. I mean, if I get more, great. Like, I'll figure it out. But I always want to be the person they're talking to, and I will always want to have that relationship with them. And like, if I get a reader email, I put it, and maybe I shouldn't do this, I prioritize that over a brand email. Yeah. And I'm still pretty good on email. I think that will probably in the long run be a great thing for you. And well, I mean, that seems as good as any note to end on. I think I have one final question for you, which is, how do you feel about season 8 of Game of Thrones? Oh my God! What are they doing?
You're not a fan, I assume.
I'm upset by the last episode. They like spent seven and a half seasons building Daenerys into this amazing person, and they just like crucified her last week. And so is this gonna go up this Monday? Yeah. So the finale will have been last night, and I don't know. Yeah. I'm upset. Yeah. Well, you know. And I'm also upset because my cat is named Tyrion after Tyrion Lannister. He's great. They're not gonna fuck with him. They can't. Everyone on Twitter says that Tyrion's gonna die. No, I hope not. I thank you for coming. This was fantastic. I think you're our first tequila and LaCroix drinker on the show. So, yeah, it's all about the tequila. And now I'm going to go to Crystal's event and be all tipsy for it. There we go. Well, thank you so much. This was fantastic. If you guys don't follow Grace, follow me. I'm sure you do now. I don't want any more followers, but I want all of you. Yeah, go to her blog every day. Don't follow her. And listen to my podcast, Bad on Paper. Bad on Paper.
And we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so honored to be here. I never miss an episode of your videos.
Thank you.
Ever.
Thank you.
It's the best.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. Empty glasses.
Yeah, I have a little bit.
Yeah.